All right, welcome everybody to episode 2 of RetrogueVania Mania. And this episode, we are going to talk about early beginnings of me and my co-host.
Hello, how's it going?
I was assuming you would say Corey, but okay. I guess we don't have the chemistry yet, but we're getting there, right? It's
Yep.
improving. And our first and a few of our firsts in some categories that this channel is kind of based around. So, but before we get into that, let's start off with what we've been up to, what we've been playing this last week. I personally have been playing a lot of Hollow Knight. Actually, probably the last few weeks is what it's like almost all I've been playing, and also some Hebroxia too. But first off, the Hollow Knighting almost done at 110 out of 112%. I think that's what that's my goal for that game right now. I have got one more Pantheon I'm gonna do, which is the fourth one. That's a percentage, and then I gotta do the get all the soul or max out enough soul so that soul dude is all happy with me or whatever. I don't know. He probably doesn't even give me anything, any rewards. Maybe he does. Don't spoil it for me, Corey. I know you've played.
I won't.
But yeah, I've been playing it, trying to be as spoilerific or spoiler free. Spoilerific, probably the actual opposite of spoiler free, right there. I don't know why I said that. But I was trying to go into it blind, which I feel like I mean, I used to come from a realm of just using guides and stuff and trying to get things as fast as possible. And yeah, it definitely took me longer. And I will say I did look up some stuff like later on, and I kind of was glad I did because I never would have figured it out. But for the most part, I've been playing it blind, and I enjoyed it a lot more that way. I mean, I know we discussed it. We discussed Hades last week, playing it blind, and how both Corey and I highly suggested doing so. But I feel like it's made games a lot more enjoyable for me, just not knowing what to expect. It's like that whoa factor, and whatnot. And I'm sure a lot of people that listen to this probably have played Hollow Knight. It's pretty well known. I know Corey, you have. So how much have you played of it?
I played the entire thing. The only thing that I have not completed is the Path of Pain. And if that rings a bell for you,
That's
I'm
that.
sorry.
Oh, that's that one just pure platforming section, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got stuck on one part, and so I turned to YouTube because I was sitting at one area for over an hour, and I used the health charm to recuperate your health over time, because I would get through certain sections by taking like one or two hits. So then I'd sit in one area, recover a little health, and then try again. And I got stuck for over 45 minutes. So I was like, all right, let me see what's on YouTube for this thing. And I watched somebody do the whole thing in 3 minutes flat, and I was like, oh my
Dang.
gosh, because it took me 45 minutes to get to where I was, and then when I watched this video, I was like 25% of the way there. The timing, and you have to be able to bounce off enemies' heads to go up and down certain sections. There's a lot of memorization, a lot of timing. Um, I don't know that you have to be pixel perfect, but you have to be darn near close.
Yeah, it
And so
was
those,
reminding me a lot of Guacamelee. Is what that section reminded me of. Like the entire
yeah,
I was like, yeah, this feels so much like Guacamelee. I actually did not have that much trouble with that section. I hate to say it, Corey, but and I'm not that great at video games, but I don't know why. Like I did the same method you did at first, and that just got me through it. I mean, it just basically gave me infinite tries, on everything. Yeah, I am struggling with those pantheons. I mean, for those that haven't played, it's basically like a boss rush mode. Like you were telling me the other day, it's like they put the hardest enemies at the back. So by the time you get to them, and then you just punt like like they kill you out of nowhere, and
Yeah. The challenge with that is what I have deemed mental fatigue. So you get 15, 20 minutes into these pantheons, and then they hit you with people who have very specific move sets, and it's a very tight window to either dodge or get your strike in, and then you have to dance around a little bit. And I noticed that if I do the training mode, I can beat some of these people 10 times in a row without getting hit. As
yeah,
soon as I go to the Pantheon, I'm whatever, 10, 12, 14 minutes into the Pantheon, and my brain is starting to get a little tired. And the people that I can do, not blindfolded, but beat repeatedly without getting touched, all of a sudden you make one mistake, and then
it just
it just
throws
seems
you
like you
off,
can't get
and
back in rhythm.
yeah, it
Yeah.
just snowballs from there. Exactly. That's exactly how I feel too. Because I would get to like round 8 or 9 or something and be like, wow, I got there with full health and like half full soul and just absolutely abysmal. It's like, seriously,
Yeah.
this is how we're going out here. We did like all the guys leading up to this flawlessly, and I did. I will say though, I beat it. I beat the third one last. I was kind of actually having fun with it. The sense that I felt like I mastered a lot of those earlier fights, and yeah, I had to keep redoing them and stuff. But it kind of made it me feel competent and that I learned and stuff. And it kind of feels like it's kind of like a roguelike that you didn't really get new upgrades for, if that makes sense. It's kind of like the feeling I was getting playing through that section. See,
Yeah.
I'm very much out of the Metroidvania part of Hollow Knight at this point. It's just Pantheons left, basically. Um, that Pantheon. So the game hasn't even felt like Metroidvania ish to me for the last week. Because I've been on these Pantheons for about a week, I think. And the trials. Although those got kind of easy once I had all the upgrades and whatnot. But
I'm of two minds about the Pantheon stuff. So, one, I think it is a really fun addition because it highlights just how good the combat system is in a Metroidvania. Now, for me personally, the combat in Metroidvania is never like the highlight of it. I have more fun just finding new pathways after you gain new
exploring.
abilities or new equipment that allow you to do. Yeah, the exploration factor is the highlight of a Metroidvania. It's never really been the combat because a lot of it, if you're playing Castlevania Swords, you're not really like ranged unless you do certain builds or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
see, I
but Hollow Knight's combat's just really fun, and so that's what I enjoyed about the Pantheon. However, the ramping up of the difficulty is it's pretty insane.
yeah, I think combat is still pretty important in Metroidvanias, but I feel like you might be right that the exploration and stuff is a little bit more for me, but I do like fluid combat and stuff like that. I mean, even if you had really good exploration, if you had abysmal combat, you need at least like pretty okay combat. But if the better the combat, certainly the better the game. It's gonna make it. But I think I kind of agree with you that I do kind of lean towards the exploration side a little bit more. But yeah, Hollow Knight combat fun. I actually initially didn't like Hollow Knight combat. I was like, oh man, this attack is so um, close range, and I was just having a hard time getting into the attack rhythm and whatnot. But I mean, it's like any game that's new, really. You kind of just take some getting used to of the controls and stuff,
Yeah.
and timing
Now,
and
and I'll say one last thing just about the Pantheons. As I was trying to master those, I played through the whole game just with the same charm setup. But once I got into the Pantheon, that's when I really started experimenting with different charms, and that led me down different rabbit holes of doing like a ranged build using strictly soul, amplifying soul damage, getting more soul per strike, that sort of thing. And then I also just tried glass cannon builds where maxed out my strength. gave myself, more strength with the less health that I had. And you can take out some of those guys in just a couple hits.
Yeah, so it was. I mean,
And those are insane builds, but you have to be just so sharp with your dancing around to avoid any attack, because literally 1 or 2 hits and you're done.
yeah, it did have me experiment a little bit more. So I mean, yeah, it was good because it was getting touching on different aspects of the game that um, otherwise wouldn't have for you. I guess is what I'm saying. So that's good, I think, um, and a little bit for me as well. I mean, there's some setups or some charms I still feel like are just not good, but yeah, these harder combat things have had me experiment a little around more than just going through the main game, the maps of the main game, where it was like, well, let's default put where you locate yourself on the map and stuff like that on. So,
Yeah.
and then the other game I was playing was, unless you got more to say about Hollow Knight.
No, I could go on for days,
Yeah,
so I think
we could
it's
do a
fine to just
whole
cut it
Hollow
there.
Knight segment, but not today at least. So the other game I was playing was Fibroxia 2. It is a I can't talk too much about it because embargo until Monday. Well, maybe when this comes out. I don't know when this comes. I was making a review video for it too, and you guys are gonna have to be when you listen to it. You're gonna have to be nice isn't the word. Forgiving, caring, lenient with me because it's my first time editing and I kind of made it a little choppy, I feel. But I learned a lot, and the next one is going to be stellar. This one's not bad, I don't think. My video of it, and then I think I'm going to stream it the day it comes out, and it is a shmup, basically twin stick shooting shmup, and uh, very retro inspired from the music to the schmuppiness of the deal. And if you played one, you kind of know what to expect from that one. So
So I played one. I really enjoyed it. I've played some of the other games Lily Mo has made. Twin Breakers, my favorite so far. Perils of Baking is also just a fun little game. But I'm interested to see what they do with Hyroxia 2. I really enjoyed my time with the first one. I played on both PS4 and Vita. It really does kind of make the Vita really nice. Just a nice device to play a small little game like that and have some fun. Um, I remember playing it while I was on my work lunch break, and it's just a nice little game that you could play for 5 to 10 minutes at a time, and then turn it off and get back to work. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more of that with Roxia too.
yeah, I can't talk too much about it because embargo until a couple more days. But if you want my impressions and stuff, check out the video that'll be up either when this goes up or later on. Or man, I don't know what we're doing scheduling wise. It'll be very close to when this video gets released. So stay tuned for that. And yeah. All right, what about you, Corey? What have you been up to?
I have done a little bit of Cadence of Hyrule. I picked this up over the holidays. It was
That game sounds
50% off.
so much fun to me. I
It is.
bought Crypt of the Necrodancer like last year on sale for like $2, but I still never played it. But it looks really fun, and in Cadence of Hyrule, I mean, I'm a Zelda fan, especially of those 2D ones. So looks good to me. So what do you think of it?
It,
So
it is great. It's great. It's really hard. um, but
oh
there is
really?
nothing quite. There's nothing quite like navigating around to the beat of these Zelda tracks that you know and love for years and years. They've remixed some of the older Zelda songs from, I think it's like Link to the Past and some of the other Game Boy games where I've recognized some of the tunes. But they've drawn on those, remixed them, and the combat is you get damage bonuses based off of whether or not you're following to the beat. And actually, if you do miss the beat altogether, you won't move. And if that happens, you're probably just going to get whacked by one of the enemies heading towards you. So everything moves to the beat, everything attacks to the beat, and you get damage bonuses and movement bonuses if you're also on beat. So that it's a really fun game. Now, I haven't played enough to get very far. In fact, I'm still looking for Kakariko Village. I think that's how you say that. That's how I've said it my entire life. So I'll just keep rolling with that. Um,
I'm
and
not sure
there's
I've
just a
ever
lot of
actually
different.
said it out loud.
There's a lot to explore. Again, I'm still trying to find my way through. I haven't looked up any guides or anything about what I'm doing. So there, I've just been, if I see a bomb spot on the wall, I'll go in there and fight whatever's in there. I will say that I have died enough to tell everybody to maximize your diamond usage and buy empty heart containers and the spear. The spear is a godsend, especially when you're first starting out and learning, because sometimes you don't know the enemy patterns, and it helps to be able to strike them from 2 tiles away instead of 1.
Corey's cadence tips there. I think it looks very interesting and very fun. But I have not played it yet.
Yeah,
Yet.
it's a really cool mashup, and I'm glad Nintendo allowed one of their prestigious IPs to be experimented and just kind of remixed to a completely different style of gameplay. And yet it still manages to capture and use some of the charm of the older Zelda 2D games. And yet it feels familiar, but it also feels completely different. It's a really, really unique game. And based off of the amount of time that I've spent on it so far, I would categorize it as something that I would recommend.
All right, awesome. Anything else you been up to? There's pretty much just the cadence there. All right. Well, if nothing else, I guess we'll move on to the not theme of the episode, the meat of this episode, I guess, which is our first gaming systems and our first, a couple of firsts here. So, I don't know. I started off the last segment. You want to start off this one? Your first gaming system is older than mine. Also, why I'm going with you first.
Sure. So I was born in 1988, and the first console that I remember playing was the Nintendo Entertainment System, belovedly known as the NES. I have heard a couple people recently call it the NES. I don't know if I like that, so I'll always call it the NES.
I call it the NES.
But my first gaming memories, start out there. I played some of the well-known titles such as Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 3, Zelda 1 and 2, which was actually just called Link 1 and 2. And the one game that I always played, just because I was a big sports fan, even in my youth, was SNK's Baseball Stars. And I don't know that I'll ever forget the memories of like creating characters and stacking my team so that I could just beat people 22-0 and have the game called in like the second inning. So even at a young age, I knew how to game the system, as they say, and like cheat my way toward winning.
Game the game.
Yep.
Yeah. I never owned an an NES, but I do have memories of Super Mario Brothers 3, playing it at my grandmother's house on my uncle's console with my cousin. And he was very good at Super Mario Brothers 3, at least. He knew where all these like flutes were and all this stuff, and I was like, wow. And I did play Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well, and Duck Hunt also. I got to play that, and I was kind of blown away. I was like, "Whoa, you mean there's this little gun here? Sweet."
Yeah.
We get to shoot ducks and stuff. I actually never played Zelda, the original Zelda, until when I got a Wii and I played on the Virtual Console. So maybe a tragedy to some people. You waited that long to play the original? Um,
Well,
but yeah.
I don't know. I went back and played it when it first became available on the Switch NES Online catalog. And I must say it's very different than what I remember. Of course, that's
Hasn't aged.
whatever. 30 years have gone by since I played. And it's still good, but there's a lot that they don't tell you. It's very cryptic. Um,
I think a lot of
it,
games were a lot more cryptic back then.
Yeah. I guess, with the advances in game design and technology, it just doesn't seem fair to have one of the dungeons hidden below a bush that you just have to randomly know to burn.
Yeah.
Um, I'm thankful that they've kind of changed how games work, but that was one thing that struck me when I was playing recently on the Switch was that some of these secrets are like there's no indication that a treasure room exists there, that there's a shortcut or even a dungeon, which is where you're supposed to go to progress the game. That just it was really weird to do that um, in 2020 when I played.
Well, it's kind of like that with even like Final Fantasies and old school RPGs and stuff, where it's like you had to talk to the specific NPC, and then, or you had to know what continent to go fly to or something, um, or whatnot, and yeah. Nowadays it's just quest marker, quest marker, quest marker. You actually had to read
Yeah,
dialogue back then because people would tell you where to go sometimes. But yeah, they would also be games where there'd just be some really random off the wall thing you had to do, and it was like, what? How was I supposed to know about that?
yeah. Now I will say that you can still find games like that where it's just very cryptic. I play
A
some
lot
of
of
the
point and clicks
Dark Souls
they
games.
they kind of do
Yeah,
that too.
the point and clicks do that for sure. But the ones that I was thinking of was Dark Souls. There's some things where in order to like activate the next area, you have to do this certain pose in this certain spot. Now, thankfully, the gaming community, for the most part, puts clues on the ground with those scrolls, so that can be helpful when you just see like a bunch of scrolls laying on the ground. But without that, there is probably some areas where I'd still be stuck on in Bloodborne or Dark Souls because I had no idea what to do.
Good job, game community, for being friendly.
I know.
See, not all the game communities are toxic. We got some. There's some friendly faces. Well, I shouldn't say faces. I have friendly people or robots.
Well,
They can
until
be
you get
robots.
invaded in Dark Souls,
Yeah.
then all bets are off.
Until then. All right. So for me, my first ever game I ever played was on an Intellivision. Um, I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
I've heard of it. I'm still not quite familiar with what it is.
It I don't know. It's kind of weird. It's kind of like somewhat like an Atari, um, sort of. I don't know. You'd have to look it up, Google it. It's hard for me to explain. But I didn't play too much of it. I'm actually a little younger than Corey, but I played this because it was at my grandmother's house, and it was my uncle's, mother's, my other uncle's. The games I played on there were Space Invaders and a game that I called Drunk Driving. And me and my cousin played this, and we called it Drunk Driving. And it was, I mean, you guys all know what Space Invaders was. I don't even know what the name of this game was. I probably could look it up. But it was basically you had a car that was going from the bottom of the screen to the top of the screen. You had to go left and right to dodge other cars. Essentially, was is what it was. And we called it drunk driving because there'd be cars that would just move in random places. And but
So I'm looking up in television right now. It launched in the United States in 1979 and sold for $275.
could you imagine how much that costs now?
Um, yeah,
Inflation.
that's a lot.
That's I'm sure that's more than the PS5.
It'd probably be pretty close,
Is there a inflation
if not more.
somewhere? There's gotta be.
Yeah, there's an inflation calculator online.
You mind punching in the numbers?
Yeah, I can run that real quick while you
All
go
right.
on to your next game.
All right. So the first system I ever owned was a SNES or a SNES, I guess, as some people would call it. And my first game, Donkey Kong Country. And this one was actually a lot of good memories with this. I didn't beat it myself. What would happen is I played it with my father actually, and um, I could do a lot of like the early on levels, but essentially what would happen is I would go and farm lives while he was at work, and then he would come home, and then I would watch him play to try to get to the next candy save area and stuff. So every day I would go and get up to 99 lives, and then I would just watch him try to get to the next area and stuff. That was my first game that I owned. And then other notables for me for the SNES, Mickey and Minnie Circus Adventure and or Great Circus Adventure, I think it actually is. But this was a co-op game, and like the first co-op game I ever played, and it was a well done co-op game because you got to both play at the same time. It wasn't like the quote unquote co-op of Donkey Kong Country where one person plays until they die and it switches to the other character. But yeah, I played this with my cousin, and I had a blast playing this with my cousin back in the day, and we actually still we dusted it off last. I mean, this was the last time we got together pre-COVID and played through it, and still fun, still very fun game. I like that one. Metal Warriors was another one. Me and my father played this. We would play this my at like parties and stuff, and it was a mech game with very unique robots, and essentially it had a good PvP mode in it that a lot of us enjoyed. Me and my cousins and my father, and the single player was all right, I guess, but we kind of all sucked at it. And then it was well, it was kind of hard, kind of a hard single player. But also, the first Mega Man game I played was Mega Man X3, and then Mega Man X2 was the first one I owned. And oh man, the feeling of finally beating Wheel Gator on that one, I will always remember that. I beat it right before basketball practice one morning, and like all day I was just like, whoa, I got this wheel, and then I immediately went to fight Bubble Crab and beat him because I had the wheel, and it was so easy then. And yeah, I don't know, I loved me that Mega Man X2 feeling. That was, and then I also have memories of renting Final Fantasy games and renting games on that system. And I was not very good at video games, but what I would do is just rent it and just hope that there was like a save file or something that someone had like laid on in the game. One funny story I have with that. One of the Final Fantasies I rented, someone named their character kind of a bad name, and I know it was a bad name at the time. So out loud, I was in my family room, and my mother was in the kitchen, and I just kept saying it over and over, like so and so beat so and so, so and so did so much damage. And then after a little bit, my mother's like, you know, that's not a good word. You should stop saying that. What is this game you're playing? So, yeah, a little bit of a funny story with that. And then I moved on to other consoles, but those are my first ones.
You brought up two things that really bring back some great memories for me. One is just the entire notion of renting games. I
Oh yeah,
remember every other weekend I would look forward to going to Blockbuster or trying to think of the name of the chain and where I lived.
yeah.
It's not going to come to me, but
We
yeah,
had
I would do the same
Blockbuster.
thing. I would hope that there was someone who had a save file that was like 100% complete or something
Yeah,
that would give me superpowers so I could just go through the game. Um, the other thing that I enjoyed doing too was renting a game and just playing for the next couple days over the weekend, and then turn it back in and then determine, do I want to buy this or not? And I think that that's pretty integral to me as a child figuring out what I wanted to ask for Christmas. I would just rent these games and then figure out, oh yeah, I want to get this one for Christmas.
Now, for me, I would just rent the same one over and over again.
Yeah, that too. I would really like to know if there was one game that I rented so many times that I probably should have just bought it instead of renting it and spending whatever $100 to rent it. I probably could have bought it for way less. All right, and just to add in, $275 adjusted for inflation from 1979 is a little over $1,000 today.
Whoa! I did not think. I was thinking maybe like 550 or 600. Wow, you could buy two PS5s with that.
Yeah, or a really nice graphics card for your custom built PC.
Yeah, man, I'm actually really surprised because my family was not like super rich or buying super expensive things. I'm really surprised they had that. That's I'm just stunned right now. Like that my
Yeah,
grandfather would have allowed that, knowing the type of person he was.
maybe it was just a something that he always wanted to do and decided to take the plunge.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to ask my parents what this or my mother and what the story behind that one was. Because I mean, yeah, they were like for Christmas and stuff. It'd be like a one doll or something. That's your whole Christmas thing, from what I took, and they were
Well, it's cheaper than buying the actual like arcade cabinet that you could find around, or a pinball machine.
yes. Wow, I'm stunned. Okay. All right, so let's move on to a little Metroidvania, a little more. Because we had Hollow Knight, but being the Vania part of the show, we gotta talk about some more Metroidvania stuff. So, first Metroidvania game ever played, I guess I'll go first on this one, was Castlevania Circle of the Moon on the Game Boy Advanced. So, I got my Game Boy Advanced, Glacier White, by the way, and I got two games for it, Castlevania Circle of the Moon and Rayman 3, I believe was. I almost said Origins, but it's definitely not correct. I think it was 3. And so that was my first experience in the Metroidvania category, and I was just like so blown away, like the exploration thing. I never played anything like it before, so there was I thought a good combat system, and it had interesting mechanics, and oh man, I loved that game so much. It was just great. And Rayman 3 also very very good because, but not nowhere in comparison to Castlevania Circle of the Moon for me. And then that led me down to get all the subsequent Castlevanias on the GBA, all the Metroidvania ones. And yeah, it kind of sparked my love for Metroidvanias.
I will add that I played Castlevania Symphony of the Night on Vita. I think it was the PSP port or just the PlayStation 1 classics that are available on Vita. And that's where I think that's the only Castlevania game I've played. Don't shoot me for only playing one, but if I had to pick one, I guess that's probably the consensus one that you should play.
Yeah,
And
that's pretty much everyone's cream of the crop. It kind of sounds like as for the official Castlevanias. Well,
yeah,
I should say official Metroidvania style Castlevanias.
and I actually played this for the first time in like 2015. I had just got my Vita and I didn't really have anything to play. And I saw available on the Vita store when it worked. You could get all of these PlayStation 1 classics for anywhere from like $2 to $5. And so I picked up a bunch of them, including Castlevania Symphony of the Night. And I gotta say, I I did not see myself spending, play sessions of like 4 and 5 hours in front of my Vita. Normally I like to do that. If I'm gonna do that, I'll sit in front of a TV where I can relax and get up and enjoy surround sound and everything. But this felt really good on the Vita. Um, and as you all may have know by now, that game is just, it's brilliant from start to finish. So that was a real fun experience for me. And so
I
far, that's the only
actually,
Castlevania I've played.
I actually never, I haven't played. Well, I didn't play Symphony of the Night until I think 2019 or 2020 or something like that. When it was, there was a collection with that and Rondo of Blood, I think it was called.
Yep. Yeah, the Castlevania collection.
Yeah,
I need to
I
get
actually
I
never
need to get around
played.
to play that.
Yeah, I never played Symphony of the Night until that one. But yeah, that game stellar. But the nostalgia factor of me, I don't even know if this aged well, The Circle of the Moon, but that was my first Metroidvania. So how about you?
My first Metroidvania was Metroid Prime, and for the Nintendo GameCube. And I remember getting what felt like halfway through the game, and I kind of stopped. I just lost interest. I guess I migrated over to Super Smash Brothers Melee. Um, that was just a little bit more of a neighborhood favorite at the time, where I would have friends over and we would just congregate around Melee. Um, so that's I really did just have a falling out with Metroid Prime, and I meant to get back to it years later. And as I was trying to, work up the courage to do so, I looked up, just like some starting out tips on Metroid Prime. It turns out what I had played up to years prior was like 10% of the game. And I was thinking, holy moly, like how much more could there possibly be? And I didn't even really get to the tip of the iceberg. And that's just, it goes to show like how many twists and turns you can back into a Metroidvania where you get new equipment, new abilities, and that just allows you to go back and explore areas that you, in most cases, didn't even know existed,
Yeah,
just because you have better traversal capability.
I feel like a lot of stuff opened up. I mean, even in Hollow Knight, when I was doing that kind of blind, I was surprised how big the world and stuff kept getting. Uh, but yeah, that's definitely an aspect of Metroidvanias. It's like you just never know how big that iceberg is. Well, unless you look it up. But
Hmm.
um, just the potential of where they could go, how much they could add into it, how many maps, how big the map is, how many maps within maps they can place, and yeah, I actually never played Metroid Prime. Well, I played a demo at Target. I remember because I used to be. I'm sure you did this too. As a kid, you always just went to the like Target and GameStop, and they had those demo machines, and you would just play. Um,
Oh God,
they still have them
yes, I
now.
did. And just think like if in a post-pandemic world that would never happen, but it was like a major piece of just being a kid growing up in the 90s and early 2000s to play the demo available at your local game store or at a big box retailer like Target or Walmart.
Yeah.
Lord knows what was on those controllers by the time 100 kids touched it.
Yeah, I don't want to think about it. All right, so that's our first Metroidvanias. First indie game. Now, when I thought of this for somewhat of a topic here, or as a question, I had trouble thinking of which was the first one I played, and then I was thinking to myself, was it really not until the PS3 that I played an actual like indie game? And then I even asked Corey this over Discord. I was like, that can't be right. There's got to be something sooner. And then we looked it up, and it was kind of like what was the era that you said they started coming? You might have.
I remember playing them on Xbox Live Arcade, where they were just smaller titles, and it was just like an experimental, like, does this work? And that's how I first started playing some of these games.
Yeah, I did look it up. I googled like indie games and stuff. There was like a little interesting history here. There was indie games that people would make, and they would have to ship them, like physically mail them to people, in order for them to play them. And I think it was like dates around like the 1990s, 1994 or something.
Mhm.
When that started, but I guess it kind of makes sense because as far as getting like reach and stuff, there. I mean, I know both me and Corey are more console players, so it probably was more available gaming on like PCs and stuff. Because I mean, PS2 didn't have like you had the online factor of the PS3, the store and stuff like that, which I think me and Corey, I'm guessing that was probably your first exposure to something like that too. Well, I mean Xbox Live Arcade for you, I guess, but um, around that era, around that time,
Mhm.
in case we just wouldn't have been exposed because the only games I was buying was stuff that I could get at my GameStop or buy off of Amazon or whatnot. So
Yeah, I remember that being a part of it. I do recall an opportunity on once Xbox Live was ubiquitous that you could download some games on there. I never did that. I only used Xbox Live to download the latest DLC for games. Um, but it was with the Xbox 360 and PS3 era, where the you could actually go on the PSN store or the Xbox Live store and start to browse through some of these smaller titles, and they were only $2 or $5. Some I think like the most expensive ones would have been 10 or 20 bucks, and so it was a little bit of a gamble. But I do remember. Um, I'm trying my best here, but I want to say that Aegis Wing was like the first one on Xbox Live Arcade. It was either free or I paid some small amount for it. But I remember being blown away out by how much fun I had playing with up to four-player couch co-op. You might even had online co-op as well. But I was thinking, well, who made this game? Like, this has to be a big budget game. And then I found out it was just a small little team, and that might have been in at the same time that I would have played Limbo. Those two are probably the first indie games that I officially played.
yeah, I never played Aegis Wing. Limbo. Actually, I don't think I played Limbo either. Now that I think about it. Yeah. So my story of how I first started, of my first indie game, I guess, was um, there was a free PS Plus trial for a week that you could do, and the free games. I mean, it's kind of like now PlayStation. They gave you free games and stuff, and um, there was a lot of indies. So over the years, there's been a lot of indies. Now they kind of try to give you bigger name games. Like the last few months, it seemed like. Um, but there was two that I remember playing on that free trial: Cuboid and Swords and Soldiers. And Swords and Soldiers was it was like a 2D. I don't even remember it all that much. Like you walked from one end of the map to the other, and you tried to get your soldiers and stuff and rally them. And I don't know. I'm probably forgetting this complete game, but Cuboid was a pure puzzle game where you had this cube that you were trying to flip around these block tiles and try to get it position it where you needed to position it. So yeah, those are the first two I ever played, and then I think the only other, like, I didn't buy a ton at the time. And then I got the free, or when I actually bought PS Plus, then I would get the free month games that way, and a lot of them were indies, and a lot of them actually brand new indies too at the time, which kind of PS Plus kind of strayed away from. Yeah, so there was that, and then I got really trophy obsessed, and a lot of the easy trophies were in these indie titles too. So that kind of,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I looked it up, and here's the history behind Aegis Wing. Quote, according to an IGN developer spotlight, the game was created when Microsoft's Jay Allard proposed a summer internship focused on game design. In response, three Microsoft interns, Scott Brody, Danny Dyer, and Matt Munson, created Aegis Wing in the summer of 2006. Dyer and Munson had been active members of the Texas Aggie Game Developers, a student organization at Texas A&M University that encourages game development among students. The three did all of the initial development work within their small team, although with artwork and audio support from other sources. The game was later brought to Xbox Live Arcade with assistance from Carbonated Games. So that was between that one and Limbo. That would have been my first indie game that I played, and I'll never forget this. I thought that this game was so much fun that it had to be made by some large developer, and I was just completely like my foundation was shook to know that it was just a small uh, project for college kids.
Yeah, I think I felt that way a little bit too when I first heard about how small of a team indie games were made by. And actually, first I didn't even know what an indie game was until probably, I'm sure, far after I played Swords and Soldiers and Cuboid. I don't know what date I could say that is when I learned exactly what one was, but yeah, I guess I didn't really think about it at the time either. I just thought, well, it's a game.
Mm-hmm.
Some company made it. So
Did you get involved with any of the late? I think it was a late PS3 initiative to um, bring indie games to market, and I want to say that at least as far as PS4 goes, when they first introduced the new PS4 console, like every month they made it a point to highlight or put a spotlight on a brand new indie title, and that's how I got to play stuff like Counter Spy, Hohokum. I think I'm saying that right, where you're just like a worm and you fly around from different environment to different environment. Very colorful, very unique gameplay. I just remember playing some of these and I thought these are all really, really fun. I wish I had more to play. That's kind of like the downside of the indie games is you wish that there were more of it, but because of their budgetary constraints and just the team size, they can't give you a 60-hour game. But some of these I would happily play that long and maybe more.
yeah, I like I said, I remember on PS Plus, it was a lot more. There's a lot more indie titles that were on there, and yeah, I guess highlighted would be kind of a good word to use. And like the brand new one, like brand
I think we'll get some more with the PS5 as the
as the devs have more time to work on it, and whatnot.
yeah. I think we'll get more as the PS5 is still in its infancy. Once the big uh, game launches like Demon Souls and um, Sackboy and Spider-Man Miles Morales, once those run their course, I think we might get a few more indie titles that'll have some time to shine here, which could be exciting.
It could be. Let's hope so. 'Cause yeah, one of the things of this channel, support those indie devs, people, because they work hard making their games. Some appreciation and getting the word out. It's good. It's doing good for the game community, I feel. So,
Yeah, a lot of developers will use this. Indie developers will use that first game as their portfolio to land jobs at some of the larger studios. So it's very exciting for them, and it's very exciting for us, the gamers, to try. A lot of these are new ideas, or um, you know, they're different spins or a new perspective on some of the same mechanics that we've played over the years, and that breathes new life and refreshing gameplay into some of these great little titles. So
Yeah, for sure.
as a fan of gaming and somebody who likes to help lift others up, I can't recommend some of these indie games enough.
Yeah, so hopefully we can highlight some stuff in our time with this channel, and you guys can also, it also helps you guys learn about games you might have missed out on and have a blast with. All right, I think that's pretty much it for the meat and bones of this episode. You looking forward to anything coming up, Corey?
There's one thing that I have on my horizon, and that is Stardew Valley's 1.5 update. The last I heard, it had gone to certification for consoles, so it could be tomorrow or it may be a couple of weeks down the road. But I am looking forward to diving back in and experimenting with and experiencing all of the new things that they added into this update.
Yeah, for me, I guess it's finish Hollow Knight and then move on to. There's a game, Blue Fire, that looks kind of interesting. That's coming out next week. Um, so maybe I'll get on that, and maybe I'll do a little review of that, and we or talk about it next week, or the week after. I don't know. I think it comes out the 4th. I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got Cyber Shadow bought, which a lot of people play and a lot of people have enjoyed. So hopefully I can. I had planned on playing that this weekend, but those Pantheons kind of, well, they took up a good deal of my time, let's say. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so I guess we'll wrap it up here. Some things to comment on in the comments below. We'd like to hear, I don't know, what was your first Metroidvania, your first indie, your first gaming console? And I don't know, have you played Hollow Knight? Like I'm thinking a lot of you have, or yeah, I guess those would be kind of fun things to have little discussions on in the comments below. You can also join the RetrogueVania Discord, and I do stream on Twitch pretty much every day. I think that's pretty much it. Twitter, there's also RetrogueVania Twitter, and Corey's got a Twitter as well, and I'll link the stuff in the description below. And anything else you want to say, Corey?
That's it for me. Thanks for listening.
All right, so with that being said, everybody have a good night, good morning, enjoy your games. Thanks for watching and listening, and hopefully we will catch you again next time. Goodbye, everybody.